So we are joined today with a Code of Danger. Of course, I'm Angel. Drew is joining me, and today we are joined by Deoxy360. How are you doing, Deoxy?
Good, I'm doing great. 6 a.m. in the morning. Sun's not even up, and happy to do this interview with you guys.
Yeah, we're excited to have you too, Deoxy. You're one of our
Well,
friends
give
of
me
the
one
channel.
moment.
Yeah, you're one of our longtime friends, longtime listeners, and we were just like, of course we'll have Deoxy on. It's a little bit background because we're both in the United States, so it'll be a really interesting take to hear from the fandom on the Australian side, because not a lot of people
Oh no, absolutely.
think about the collecting market or even like releases and stuff in Australia versus the US. We were talking off camera, and right there on your shelf I see the new Ninja Megazord, the pop. That hasn't even
Mhm.
hit the stores in the US yet.
Yeah, like so with releases with Australia, it's been crazy. So, you can't find them in toy stores. I will say that I've been to a lot of toy stores. I barely find any Power Ranger toys there. If not, it'll be limited quantities. But the inflation rate with the exchange dollar is pretty crazy when it comes to the dollar as well.
Okay, so that's interesting. So, I'd like to ask you more about that. So, for instance, since we're in the U.S., we're getting stuff directly from Bandai and from Hasbro themselves. So, I can't imagine like what the inflation must be on those things. Because I mean, um, I can tell you like maybe one of those Super Sevens will cost maybe 40-50 bucks. What would something like that run in Australia?
100, 100 Australian dollars, which is,
Jesus Christ.
yeah, especially even like the non-deluxe ones would be 100 Australian dollars.
Wow. And just to put it into perspective, because I'm kind of interested, 100 Australian dollars does sound like a lot in US. Let me see how much that
I think
would
it's
be.
like 49 to 50.
Oh my God, that's like paying $65 on that, Drew.
That's what I figured because the price of inflation sometimes in other countries is so well what they charge and what it equals out to what we would pay. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's just how it goes in other countries. It's like in Canada, who's technically next door. Look at their prices. You ever look at the back of a comic book and it says
Yeah, for
US
sure.
prices and
Yeah,
Canada
yeah.
prices, and the Canada prices are like way up here? I
hmm
mean, that's how it is, sometimes with the tax and everything like that in
Hmm.
other countries, unfortunately.
Yeah,
Because I'm
because
sure Deoxy would like to pay what we pay, if he
Oh,
could.
absolutely. I would love to.
no, for sure. I was telling Deoxy, I was like, hey, for any releases that you can't find, just hit me up and let's see what we can do for you.
That'd be fun. It's just the shipping you'd have to pay an arm and a leg for.
I know,
Yeah.
dude, because I had a friend, and it's funny because we were talking about the PlayStation 4 at the time. It had
hmm
just come out, and he's in Japan, and he's telling me, he's like, dude, it's so much more expensive out here than it is over there. And I'm like, but it's made here. He's like, yeah, but for some reason it's more expensive. So I was just like, I had just got my PlayStation 4, the Batman edition. So I had
Oh
my day
man.
one, and I was just
hmm
thinking, it can't be that much to ship a PlayStation 4 to Japan. So I remember I go to FedEx,
hmm
and I'm like, how much to ship it? They're like, oh, that's gonna be like 500 bucks.
What?
And I was just like, for this? I was like, I might as well just send him the money to buy a PlayStation 4 at that price.
No, there was you guys ever familiar with retro blasting, the channel retro blasting?
Mm-mm.
No, no.
It's kind of a retro action figure channel, so they go back to like the 70s and the 80s and part of the 90s. And Michael French that runs it, there was a guy actually in your area, Australia, that got the Return of the Jedi HasLab Jabba's cell barge from Return of the Jedi,
Oh,
and that thing
okay.
is huge. When you see it in the movie, it's big. And they made a full scale, holds 3 to 4 inch figures with an elevator in it and everything. It was all done out. And they said that they wouldn't, first off, Hasbro would not ship to Australia. So the guy had bought it and sent it to Michael French in the States and said, "Hey, well, Merry Christmas." And he said, No. I'm going to fly it out. I'm going to fly out to Australia and fly it with me and bring it to you, because the shipping was so out of this world coming from where he was and then coming from the United States to him. So he just flew out there, checked out the Mad Max Museum, and hung out with them and took it because it cost so
Wait,
much.
there's a Mad Max museum?
Yes.
Probably not in my state. Probably not in my state. Probably in eastern states. But yeah.
Okay, because I'm just like,
Broken Hill.
Isn't the country a Mad Max museum?
No, not the whole country.
I have to look it up. Country Mad Max.
Yeah, it's in Broken Hill. I know that.
Yeah.
Because Mad Max was filmed in Australia, right?
Right.
The
Yeah.
first two, and then the third one was in another part, but they did most of their stuff in Sydney and then up to Broken Hill, and then they went out to another region of Australia to do Thunderdome.
That's right.
The new ones a lot of them were shot somewhere in Africa.
Yeah, because that was a super low budget movie in and of itself too.
Yes, they did it for underneath 60,000.
That's crazy. That is nuts. That's almost like El Mariachi. Because I think that only cost them 75.
And they did this in 1979.
Oh wow.
So, it was they really had to make things work because they didn't have a lot of stuff in 1979. George Miller, who directed it, was actually a doctor that had an interest in filmmaking and got involved in filmmaking. And then Byron Kennedy drove usually the ambulance that he was usually on as a doctor. So they were working the ambulance and he was doing the doctor thing, and they did the whole Mad Max deal and, put up a lot of their stuff, and people that came on set did things for beer and pizza and favors and all that jazz like that to make it happen. Yeah,
exactly, dude. And just to put it into perspective, because we were talking about 1979, so people understand like what they were working with, what kind of tech they were working with. Jaws was 1975, so only 4 years before. So that shark. That's what I love about Universal. They tell you and they show you. They're just like, yeah, the shark didn't work at all.
Yeah, that shark, Bruce.
Yeah,
Bruce had a lot of problems. He did not work. He looked really cool, but yeah, they didn't think about number one, when they put that in the water, like with the seawater, like the salt like did things to it, so they had to, if I remember correctly, they had to put it directly in fresh water a lot of the time to avoid certain problems.
So when they made it, they tested it in fresh water. So it was working perfectly in fresh water, but then they put it into the beach and they realized we didn't account for the salt.
No, they did not. And that's why you don't, and it not working that much. That's why you didn't see it as much, but it kind of added to the movie, actually, so when you do actually see it, it's like, wow, when it comes out. So it kind of played to, so they got lucky with that one. It worked out really well, but when you did get to see it and they made it work, it was worth every dollar, because it was really cool. I still think about a Quint in the mouth of Jaws, right?
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. When he ended up in the mouth, Robert Shaw ended up in the mouth of Bruce and he was stabbing it with the knife. I was like, oh man, that's the most horrifying scene.
And then there's that famous scene of him inside the shark, like backstage, like just chilling out, like super happy inside the shark.
Oh yeah. Robert Shaw was an interesting guy. Yeah, I was huge Jaws fan, and that movie was something else. I never got to go to the ride in Florida where you get to fight the shark.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, the boat host has a shotgun and shoots at the shark, and he's like stalking you guys.
That sounds awesome.
It was rad, Deoxy. If you guys ever go on YouTube, you can see people have whole videos of it, and you'll see it. And let me see. Chief Brody speaks on the radio, and talks to you guys a little bit as you go through and everything. Yeah, it was all crazy. And it was a and it's Roy Scheider's voice, so it's really cool. But they don't have it anymore. I forgot what they replaced it with or something.
I'm sure they replaced it with something else by this point. Yeah. Fast and the Furious.
I think it was something about Fast and the Furious. I'm pretty sure. And
Fast and the Furious replaces everything, dude.
Why? I don't like those movies. I don't. I like Mad Max. If I like a car movie, it's Mad Max.
I'm telling you guys, I'm calling it right now. In the next movie, they're all going to combine into a Megazord.
Oh my gosh. Well, they did fly out to space. Didn't they put some sort of classic car in space?
Yeah.
Like they get more and more ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. Goodness. I haven't seen the 10th one yet, so I don't know how ridiculous that one's going to get.
I wouldn't even watch the first one. I couldn't do it.
Well, like they changed. Like the first two movies were like about street racing, and then all of a sudden it just went into like espionage and like Vin Diesel doing random stuff to cars.
The 5th one I'll like, the one where they introduced the Rock's character. That's still a good one. Like with the chase scene at the end. That's a really good chase scene.
I mean, I just think it's cool that, like, even though they didn't like each other, it still translated really well into the film.
I can't do it. I just can't do it. Once you go through the Mad Max experience, nothing else just doesn't work with cars. That's just it. And they did all that stuff straight out with real cars crashing into each other and, real cars flipping, and they strapped a rocket to the back end of one car and let it go top speed and crashed it and everything. So, and emptied out cars with no engines. So then when you hit it, fly up in the air and knock it even harder, stuff like that. Like, can't do that. Fast and Furious. They're not going to do it. The practical way was so great, and they were so into that, and it just really translates. And Mel Gibson was just prime perfect for Max Rockatansky, which is, if you're a Mad Max fan, that's his actual last name.
So, Deoxy, a little bit about yourself. So,
sure.
Your channel primarily focuses on comics and toys, right? Because I haven't been here since the beginning.
No, it's not toys. So I won't do toy reviews, but I'll cover like toy news and stuff like that. So when my YouTube channel first started, I would just cover whatever and see I would throw shit at the wall and see what hit. Like I did Pokemon Let's Plays. I made videos talking about whatever I wanted to talk about. And then when the Boom Studio Comics was coming out with Shattered Grid, that's when I picked up the Power Ranger comics, and then it took off since then, and that's what I've been mostly covering. But with Power Rangers, the way it is, I'm just covering whatever I want to cover now, whether it's a comic, a bit of news, or something like that. Then I'll mostly talk about it and here and there. But yeah, I've been talking about a little bit of toys here and there, but I don't really review the toys. So just the news of the toys, but mostly comics. Yeah,
for sure. So you've been covering the Power Ranger comics since at least Shattered Grid then? So have you read the whole run, or just from Shattered Grid on?
Oh, I've read the whole run. Like I've read the whole run back to front for like research on videos and stuff like that.
So you're actually the perfect person to talk on stuff with the comics, because I've read the beginning of MMPR, the comic, to Shattered Grid. And then after Shattered Grid, I'll admit I stopped. Because
a lot of people did.
Because I mean, forgive me if I'm wrong. There's the MMPR comic, the Go-Go Power Rangers, and then there was like that weird like team up of different Rangers led by like Lauren Shiba for a little while.
Yeah. So the run's interesting. So there was the Mighty Morphin run that ran from 2016 to 2020,
Mhm.
and that was up to issue 56. And then after that, Ryan Parrott, so issue 0 to 31, no, issue 0 to 30 was the Kyle Higgins run. And then
Yeah.
after that, it was the Margaret Bennett run with Beyond the Grid that lasted like 10 issues. Mixed opinion run. Some people say it's horrible. Some people say it's all right. It's average. And then issue 40 to onwards, issue 40 up to issue 100, if you count legacy numbers, was Ryan Parrott's run. Because after issue 56, I think, of Mighty Morphin, they split the comics up where you would have the Omega Rangers with Jason, Trini, and Zach doing their thing, and then the Mighty Morphin team stuff happening on Earth. And then when they got to issue 100, then they started titling it issue 100 again. So
Okay.
that was the Melissa run up to the comic's end. But yeah, there was Go-Go Power Rangers. That was Ryan Parrott's run. That was 32 issues. And then the newest one is Power Rangers Prime with Lauren Sheba and stuff like that. The one that came out last year.
Okay. And so I haven't picked up Prime. So would it be too much of a stretch to just start there and then ever since I haven't read since Shattered Grid?
No, you can jump right into Prime because Prime is kind of like the absolute or the ultimate universe when it comes to comics.
Okay.
So it's same characters but it's a brand new universe with different characters here and there, but same characters that you know. So if that's the best way to describe it. So
is it like an Elseworlds book then?
yeah, Elseworlds story.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering, because I know I saw that little baby T-Rex in like a few of your videos and all of that, and I'm just like, okay, I have no idea what's going on with any of that, you know? So are they making baby Zords in this?
It hasn't been confirmed. I know the characters made it. They said they made it in a lab with like the Eltarian tech here and there, but that is yet to be explained. So they haven't called it a Zord yet.
Okay.
But I think with how it looks like, it's definitely a Zord with how it's going in the story.
See, that's interesting to me because in I don't know if you watched a lot of Sentai, but
yeah, I watched a fair few.
The one with the Kiba Ranger, Die Ranger.
Yeah, Die Ranger.
The Zord in that, the White Ranger Zord, is a baby in that.
Well, not a baby, a little kid.
Yeah, exactly. It's a little kid. Yeah, and that's why it like acted all spastic in the first episode of Power Rangers. Yeah, I remember that. So that's interesting if they do end up doing kid Zords and baby Zords again.
Yeah.
Okay. And what other comics do you cover besides that? Are you doing like Marvel or DC or anything?
A little bit of Marvel. Like I'm covering Kyle Higgins' Venomverse versus Spider-Verse at the moment because it's by them and I like their stuff. So I'm covering that. Radiant Black and Rogue Sun I'm covering as well, which is done by Ryan and Kyle. And I also finished covering Naruto and the Ninja Turtles crossover comic, which was a 4-part miniseries, which was a lot of fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you hear that? True. The
What's
Turtles
that,
are
buddy?
joining
anime.
It's an anime that actually works because Naruto is about ninjas.
Well, whose team were you on? Were you on Team Naruto or were you Team TMNT?
Well, they didn't really fight, so I was mostly Team TMNT. But it was a fun little crossover. Like I grew up with both series. Like I was familiar with both, and have like a Western property crossover with an Eastern property. Was like really good, like a lot of fun. Like I never thought we'd get something like this.
Because I remember the Attack on Titan crossover they did with Marvel. So is it similar to that where they just show up? There's like no explanation with the turtles just showing up to the Naruto universe?
Yeah. So in that comic, it's set in the Naruto verse, but they've got the Big Apple Village where the turtles have kind of existed within that universe for the longest time. So it's still the same turtles background, like Mutineers and stuff like that, the Shredder and stuff like that. Except like they've had this village in Naruto that's exactly like New York City that's been chilling there for the longest time.
Okay.
Wow. I've got a question for you.
Sure.
Mine Angel.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the new VR Troopers?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I'm definitely looking forward to that comic. The VR Troopers showed up in Power Rangers Prime, which was crazy when that happened because Boom Studios sent out press releases. They'll send out review copies to YouTubers or people who do cover websites and stuff like that. And one of the things they were like, we are not sending out preview copies for Power Rangers Prime Issue 1 due to spoilers. And I was like, okay, okay. And then there was an article by Bleeding Cool by saying, oh, you won't guess who shows up in the new Power Rangers Prime comic. And I clicked the link, and it's a big fat spoiler of that issue or what happens. And I messaged one of the guys from Boom who sent out the press release. I was like, are you aware this is happening? And it's like, we didn't send any press releases to Bleeding Cool Comics. I don't know how they got this. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. Someone must have leaked it to him who got another different review copy. But I'm really excited for the VR Troopers showing up in comic form because it is the VR Troopers in the Power Rangers Prime universe. But from what they've established, there is still the old VR Troopers lore. It's just within the Power Rangers Prime universe as well.
Oh, wow. Are you aware that the original cast reunited and they are doing conventions right now? The first videos of their interviews just came out. So you get Michael Hollander, you know, you get Sarah Brown, who was the big one. She's back on the scene.
Nice.
You know, and of course you get Brad Hawkins and the gentleman that played Brad's father and Percival are all with them. I'm still waiting for Wendy Lee if she's going to show up, who played Red Python. She's on the convention scene, and people have been trying to reach out to her to see if she wants to join. But yeah, it's I watched some of the interviews, really cool. So I didn't know if you knew about it and what your thoughts were about it.
So I didn't grow up with a lot of VR Troopers here and there, but it like I watched a few episodes and like it don't think it ever came to Australia from what I know of. But I have rewatched some episodes here and there, and I watched clips of Metallica and Spielberg and stuff like that, the Metal Heroes. But it's cool to see them all coming back together again. Like it's cool to see the actors coming back together again. Because Brad Hawkins has been like an anime voice actor for a while. He's been in a few things. And I don't know what the other actors got up to after VR Troopers, but it's cool to see them come back together again, because if they're coming back early, then that means they're not like waiting for like the next Power Morph kind of every 2 to 5 years to get reunited. There on the convention scene reuniting, which is great.
Yeah, Sarah Brown was on soap operas
Okay.
for a good while, and I think she's still active with that to a point. And then Michael Hollander, that played JB Reese, he went into video game designing and animation, which he's still currently doing.
Nice.
So, and he was heavy martial art instructor. That's actually how he got started in everything. I'm not sure if he's still training currently right now, but for a lot of years he did. And I know he has a passion for that. So he might be still teaching a little bit too.
Oh, okay. I didn't know they were doing other stuff.
Wasn't Sarah Brown the one that was dating Shooky for a while?
Yes, she was. She has a daughter by Shooky Levy.
I wonder if like her being public now, like more people are gonna ask her about that, you know?
You know, you never know, but that's why apparently she was not on the circuit, was because Saban Entertainment's involvement, once that was all kind of taken apart and, you know, sold to Hasbro, and Hasbro sold it to Playmates and all that, she didn't have to, because she didn't want to deal with any of the Saban ties or people. So it's like, once that got free, then here she is. But yeah, if you guys, I could send you both the video, because that video interview she did where she talked about that, her apartment catching fire, all kinds of stuff, and Shooky Levy and that whole thing, she tells it all, and it is the craziest story you'll ever hear. And very shocking. What's that, Deoxy?
I'll definitely have to look into that convention.
Yeah, I'll send it to you. I will definitely send it to you, and I'll send it to you, Angel. But when you guys watch this, you're going to be like, whoa, because it's bad. It's pretty. It's really. I'm not exaggerating. On a scale of 1 to 10, it is a 20.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we gotta watch that then.
Yeah, like Bill Clinton's like in one of the stories.
Jesus.
It's
What?
it's bad. It's bad. Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna grab my phone right now. I'm gonna send it to you guys.
So Deoxy, so
Mhm.
since we got the VR troopers, do you think it's gonna be a stretch to be like we might see Common Riders come back then?
Maybe. Like, I mean, Hasbro still has the IP if they still have the IP for VR Troopers, because I assumed that when Hasbro bought all the Saban stuff is that they bought only Power Rangers, because that's what the toys were going to and stuff like that. I didn't think they like held onto the property for the longest time and didn't do anything with it. But it's possible because like within the old Saban era of I think there's an interview somewhere where Kyle wanted to put Masked Rider in Shattered Grid, but they
Oh,
couldn't find a way. That I don't quite know if this is true or not. Might have to ask Kyle. But I think, or maybe brought up an interview that he wanted to put Masked Rider in there, but I think there was like loops and hoops they had to go through, or they couldn't find a way to put it in for the story. But there's
got
been
it.
other Masked Rider things they put in there, like the original stuff they've created, like King Lexion and stuff like that. That's showed up in the Power Ranger comics here and there. But it's possible, like if Hasbro still owns the property, then we can maybe see, like, I don't know, Big Bad Beetleborg show up in the comics, or Knights
Oh,
of
dude,
Tyrann Mabog show up in the comics. Like anything's possible if they still have VIP.
yeah, because I know I've seen concept art that they wanted to do another Master Rider show. I think I did see like a concept of 01,
Mm-hmm.
but like it just went nowhere.
Yeah. Oh, no. Now I remember what you mean. Yeah, I remember that back in 2010 during Neo Saban era, like
Hmm.
they had Power Rider trademarked, and they did nothing with it,
Yeah,
which I'm kind of glad they didn't, because like 2010's Kamen Rider would have been really hard to adapt or something like that. So that would have been around the time of like Decade and Double and whatever else was coming out. So that would have been really hard for them to adapt.
I don't know, man. I want to see Riders done justice. That's the thing, because like Dragon Knight was really good.
Oh
Dragon
yeah,
Knight
yeah.
was really good.
I haven't seen Dragon Knight, but I've seen clips of Dragon Knight, and from what I've seen, it looks good. I just haven't watched the entire 50 episodes. I have to go on the ticket machine and legally acquire a copy of Dragon Knight, if you know what I mean.
No, for sure. And
Yeah.
I know that it was so well liked by the Japanese that they made a sequel to Dragon Knight, but in manga form.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, so that's rare when they're like, we like it so much that we're gonna adapt it into
Mhm.
our own thing, you know?
Angel is the biggest Kamen Rider, Masked Rider fan out there. All hands.
Oh, well, it's good. It's good. Like, I'm loving Gab right now, watching that each week. 01 was a lot of fun. Like, during lockdown, I watched a lot of Sentai and Rider, because I couldn't do anything. Like, I watched Die Ranger, I watched Kako Ranger, I watched, what was the one that was coming? Kira Major, I think I watched during lockdown. And then 01 was happening during lockdown, so I watched that as well. That was a lot of fun. Like,
Did you watch Shinkenger?
oh yeah, I watched Shinkenger a few years ago, and that's fantastic.
Oh yeah, I mean, Heirloom, I know one of his videos I commented on it because I know you
Mhm.
guys both did a top Sentai beloved in Japan video. And I
Mhm.
know Heirloom was like, I have no idea why Shinkenger is rated that high. And I was just like, it's because you had to be there. It was
Mhm.
crazy when Shinkenger was around because um it was to the point of being in the main media. And
Oh yeah.
usually Super Sentai is not main media stuff. That's usually just for
Mhm.
kids, but Shinkenger was watched by everybody.
Yeah.
It was like
Shinkenger was
it
great.
was a big thing, Drew, because that one was like a mature Sentai, but at the same
Mhm.
time, like it was still for kids. Like they still had
Mhm.
kid jokes, but they treated
Yeah.
it for adults. So like
Right.
by the time it ended, you know, every Super Sentai is only supposed to be one season, but they were like, we don't want another season. We don't want another Sentai team. We just want a season 2.
Yeah.
Wasn't the season 2 thing like a big thing with Japan? Like they didn't really do that. You know,
They
that was
don't.
like,
No,
yeah,
they
because
don't.
I
Yeah.
saw that people were like, "Oh, give us," and they were like, "No, we won't." But the next show you're gonna like just as much, and it's like,
Yeah, they had to
Mhm.
round up the crew and literally make like um an emergency commercial being like, "Hey kids, we know you love Shinkenger, but we promise you'll love the next one just as much as us."
why Mighty Morphin was so sliced up.
Well, no, Shinkenja was samurai.
Oh, I was just
Yeah.
saying in general, when you watch, you know, from Jew Ranger, they didn't do a part, you know, they didn't do more of the show. So when it got to
No.
America and they did Power Rangers, you know, it's all sliced up with the Green
Mhm.
Ranger thing and everything. So I was like,
Oh yeah,
that's why
yeah.
they I should have correction, Deoxy, I should have said every Power Ranger show. And that's why it's kind of sliced up sometimes because they only
No,
went
that's
so
okay.
far and they didn't
That's
want
okay.
to pay for extra stuff.
Mm.
Well, when they paid for ZU2 stuff, that's when they were just like, "Okay, we have to pay for more
Mhm.
footage. Like there's just no way." And then like I've talked to before is that, you know, Cat becoming a thing was not supposed to be a thing. That was because Amy Jo was leaving and they were just like, we have all of these footage of Green Ranger and the Pink
Mhm.
Ranger as a couple. We
Yeah.
need to have him with the Pink Ranger. So Deoxy, what besides that, what do you think is a comic that needs more attention?
Oh shit. Kyle's comic Radiant Black. Because that is fantastic. Like a lot of people need more eyes on that series. I will say that myself. But Radiant Black, I'm really enjoying. There's a new comic called Lost Fantasy that I'm reading. There's a lot of good. Jason Aaron or Aaron Jason, I get their name confused. Who's doing the Absolute Superman run? That's been a lot of fun. And he's also doing another series called Bug Wars that I have yet to check out. But I feel like even though I won't say if I watched it, I feel like it should get checked out. But if you're not reading anything from the Absolute universe that DC is putting out, then you're missing out. That is for sure.
Because I know they just came out with Absolute Batman, right?
Yeah. Last year it's fantastic. Like another Elseworld Batman story. So there's Absolute Batman, Absolute Superman, Absolute Wonder Woman, Absolute Martian Manhunter, and Absolute Flash that they put out.
Mm-hmm.
And
Okay, so those
then
are Elseworld books then.
yeah.
Okay.
And they've been crushing it in sales.
Oh wow, I know
Yeah.
Rob Liefeld had
Mm-hmm.
talked about that. If you're familiar with Rob Liefeld, Deoxy.
Yeah.
Okay,
Deadpool.
cool. Yeah, he had talked about he really liked Absolute Batman. Like that was one of the ones that he really enjoyed. I got to
Mm-hmm.
ask you, Deoxy, as a
Sure.
up and coming comic, you know, you've been in there and you read the current stuff. So I should
Yeah.
say reading the current comic book scene because I'm from the senior
Old
citizen
school.
years.
Yeah.
Um, what do you think the future of comic books looks like? I think that's a really important question to ask.
Yeah.
It's hard to say. Like it's hard to say what the future of comics will look like. Because sales are doing well for some stuff, but then I guess it depends on the distributors and stuff like that. Because some people say that comics are dead or manga's killing comics, depending on what narrative people want to spin. But if series like Absolute series or Ultimate Spider-Man are crushing it, then I think the future of comics is going to be fine. Because I usually, with after every MCU movie, there's going to be someone who's going to want to check out the comics and hear them bear, or check out like certain like after a DC or Marvel movie, they'll check out a comic about that character and stuff like that. So I don't know. I feel like the future of comics is going to be fine. Knock on wood. We'll see what
Okay.
happens.
Yeah,
What
because
is
I've always seen that maybe the future is gonna be not in single issues, but making
In trades.
in trades, because the trades now are selling more than
The
single
single
issues.
issues.
I
Okay.
feel like with the economy being the way that it is, especially in the
Mhm.
US, a lot of people are just foregoing on the single issues and just picking up the trades because they're like, I'm not gonna hunt down a comic that gets super expensive. I'm just gonna get the trade and
Yeah,
find
yeah. And
out
I
what
do that
happened.
for some series.
Because I
now?
know the Three Jokers kind
Mhm.
of did it that way, where it was like, okay, like it was a big book. Just each issue
Mhm.
was really big, and I think it was like a month in
Yeah.
between each one. So they
Mhm.
were just like, okay, we'll just put out a bigger volume and do it that way. So that's
Yeah.
why I thought, okay, I think that might be the beginning of the end of single
Mhm.
issues.
Not doing
Um,
one shots.
you guys bring up something interesting, both you guys, because the graphic novel market is really big. The omnibus market
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
is really really big. And a lot of people, yeah, I mean, you've got your people that'll pick up some separate issue stuff, but I think you guys are correct in saying that the future will definitely be that. Because back in the day, you didn't see graphic novels that much. I mean, when you go back to like the 90s and the 80s, I saw one of them on a blue moon.
Mhm.
People didn't do them a lot back then. And so people were doing the separate issue thing. And then, but people liked the graphic novels when they happened. It's just that comic book companies were not doing them that much. It was a rare thing. One of the first ones that I ever saw was the Phoenix Saga.
Oh yeah,
Was
that's
one of
right.
the first graphic novels, and I had the original first ever graphic novel they did for it, and that was one of them that they had done, and it was like, wow, like when you saw it. So I do see a future in that, and I wanted to ask you about this part, Deoxy. The movies are having a little bit of a problem on both ends of comic book companies, so for Marvel and DC.
Mhm.
Okay. And if they were to stop doing the movies, really, really slow it down, right?
Yeah.
What do you think that would do to the comic book market?
Honestly, it's like I don't want to say optimistic and be like good. I can be optimistic and say I think it'll be fine, but there was like I guess during the 90s and the 80s there wasn't a lot of comic movies and stuff like that where I guess comics sold fine until Marvel went bankrupt and sold a lot of their properties here and there. So I don't know. I guess it's hard to say. Like if they did stop, that would be really interesting. But I guess comic sales will always just be fine. I don't think they'll do like gangbuster numbers, but there'll still people be interested in picking up like the latest run of what they're following here and there.
No, for sure. And I mean, I always thought that, for the hardcore guys, I liked what DC was doing in the animation department, because like
Same.
you got really good movies like The Killing Joke without like the first 30 minutes of it.
We
Oh boy,
don't
Bruce
talk
Tim
about
and
that.
his
We don't
mess up.
talk about that.
I always skip it. I'm just like, okay, I'll start at chapter 2.
I got that Blu-ray and I was like, the fuck is this?
Yeah, Drew is a big fan of Barbara Gordon dating Bruce Wayne.
But yeah, because like I bought it on Blu-ray and I was like, oh, we're gonna watch The Killing Joke animated, and we're like 30 minutes into it, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this?
Yeah, man. I mean, I always thought it was weird. I always thought that relationship was weird, like, because Barbara and Dick are like, supposed to be the
Yeah.
same age. So, Dick is supposed to be like his little brother, not even little brother. He's the adult in the relationship. So he's like,
You better not be talking about Damian Wayne.
no. We're talking
No.
about the Bruce Wayne Barbara Gordon relationship.
Oh,
That is
okay,
just
good.
weird. Yeah, it's just weird.
No, that whole thing, Angel and I have talked about this. Here's how it goes. Boys and girls, let's go back in time. I am old enough to when I got to vote with my older brother to kill or save Jason Todd when they first killed him. I'm that old. And we voted both of us to kill Jason Todd. And as you know, he died because it was a riptide roar of people that wanted to kill Jason Todd because we hated Jason Todd. So he had to go. So let's go back to Barbara Gordon and Dick Grayson. Fantastic. Bruce Timm, we love him for the animated series. We give him praise. You know, we definitely, you and Paul Dini, you guys were awesome. But we found out without Paul Dini there with him 24/7, he tends to go on these little weird things. And that is how we get to our subject today of the Killing Joke. Bruce Timm said, oh, I'm going to do this. And not only that, he had been hyping the Barbara and Bruce, because when you watch, what is it, Batman Beyond, which I thought the show was good. Me personally, I can't see anybody outside of Batman except Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson and maybe Tim Drake. That was kind of hard for me to see it. But I checked out certain things about the show. And one of the things I did see was that Barbara, being older, she had told to Terry McGinnis that her and Bruce were an item. And that's a Bruce Timm move. So I think that was one of the first times that had come up. And I was like, what the heck? And then he did the comic book. And then he said, well, you didn't see Dick Grayson in Batman Beyond because, well, Bruce and Barbara had become an item and Dick couldn't handle it. And I thought, what? And I said, so that's the whole reason why we didn't see him in the show, because Bruce Timm has this weird thing. And then the Killing Joke comes out and he sticks that in there. But I did hear and see that he did do an email where he said, I'm not messing with the Barbara Gordon, Bruce Wayne thing anymore. I'm not doing it. Thank you, Bruce Timm. Why you did that, I don't know, but you have seen the light. Stop it. Don't do that anymore. Continue on with our regular scheduled program.
Yeah, man. I mean, I always thought that was a weird relationship. I always thought that, Barbara should not be with Bruce. I think she should. I mean, I'm tired of the Starfire, Robin,
Me too.
and Barbara being the third wheel.
Nobody, I don't even know why they did the Starfire thing. Why, the guys over there at the time doing the Titans, why they decided to put, Dick with her and do that back and forth for as long as they did, because that was a lot of years. And cut out Barbara, of course, paralyze her, and still do the back and forth, even around each other. If they were around each other, there was a lot of back and forth. So it was always like the up and down. But that's what's weird about comics sometimes. They have these characters that they do that up and down with for like 60 years. They up and down, up and down. They're there, they're dating, they're not, they're married, they're not, they almost did, they didn't. And they do that for a long time. So that's why when they did the Batman and Catwoman, whole they're gonna get married, I said, oh, how are they gonna mess this one up? That was the first thing I thought. And what happened? It was all just a sham. The whole story was a sham. I was like, but what was the point? Deoxy, what are your thoughts as a current comic book reader? What are your thoughts about the up and down? Because Angel and I, we're older, so we've seen some of these characters for a long time. But as a guy that reads the recent stuff, how do you feel about the relationships of characters, and what should they do? Should there be that tug of war, or should they play with it for a second and just leave it alone?
Maybe just leave it alone. Leave it alone, because I know that certain writers like to do certain things here and there. I had heard of I think it was the Tom King run during the Catwoman and Batman wedding. I think that was that run. Yeah. And I heard, I saw on the internet it turned into a bit of a shit show and stuff like that when they were building up towards it. But yeah, I feel like if the chemistry is already there, then I don't know, but don't leave it alone. But don't hype something up and then just do nothing with it here and there. If that makes any sense.
Yeah.
No, that makes perfect sense because you know, either that happens or somebody dies. You know, like Gwen Stacy died, you know, and they did that, and you know, it's like, oh, what are we gonna do now? And it's like, well, I don't know, but they,
Well,
you know, they brought
her
in Mary
back.
Jane.
You know, they brought Gwen Stacy back in like one of the newer runs.
Yes, didn't they bring her back a couple times in some sort of way, if I remember correctly? Because
Yeah.
Spider Gwen.
The first I can remember is Jackal brought her back to life.
Yes.
Because of Scarlet Spider. Like, I guess she was the first clone or something like that. And then Spider Gwen came about, and then they decided to drop her into the into the main comic universe. Yeah.
Yeah, or they do something like that. So I'm just like, well, you know, I think if you guys went about it in a little bit of a better way, because, you know, even with Rogue and Gambit's my favorite Marvel character, getting married, which they are finally married, and they didn't mess up or play a trick. But the trick was originally, did you guys know about this? There was actually another wedding that was supposed to happen. The Gambit and Rogue thing was a fluke in the story.
Wasn't it the Cyclops Jean wedding?
No, it was Colossus and Kitty Pryde were getting married, and they had hyped up all these covers and everything. And then when you read the story, they don't get married. Kitty backs out at the last minute, and then Gambit runs over to Rogue and pulls out the ring and says, yeah, we should do it. And she says yes. So then the next cover flips into Gambit and Rogue married on the cover.
Okay.
Yeah, it was crazy. I don't know. Like, I'm glad that they did, you know, because I'm like, oh, that'll end that tug of war, because that was a long tug of war between Gambit and Rogue. But Kitty Pryde and Colossus have also been a couple from many, many years that they've toyed with left and right, and they have not put them properly together, despite many stories that have led into alluding that they get married in the future and kids and all that stuff. So that's always been a big thing in comics, where they've always kind of done that. I think Superman and Lois Lane was probably the one that I would say, messed with the least. You know?
Yeah, eventually they ended up getting married and everything.
Yeah.
They were just like, okay, like, these are the ones that we don't mess with.
Now we got to think One More Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, they're always messing with people.
Swamp Thing and his wife.
Yes.
Oh, I don't really follow Swamp Thing that much.
Are they even still together anymore? Or is that
gone? So, dude, if you have Deoxy, I love Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing is one of the best characters. I think is one of the most, like, characters that I think deserves a good movie or a good story. Because, I mean, the Alan Moore run was fantastic. Like, he's one of the only characters that Batman acknowledges can beat him.
Oh, okay.
Like, basically in that story, it was during the time, if I'm not mistaken, Drew, around Reagan, right?
When Reagan era?
Yeah, it was around the Reagan era, I believe, when immigration was a big thing in the United States.
I think when Alan Moore got a hold of him, yeah.
So basically the whole thing is that Superman and Lois had just gotten married, and the DC world was like full of racists, and they were just like, Super should not be allowed to marry normal humans. And so they annulled Swamp Thing's marriage, and they took away his wife, and they held her in Gotham City. So Swamp Thing goes crazy, and he can control at this point not just plant life, but microscopic life as well.
Okay.
So he turns Gotham City into basically the proverbial Garden of Eden. where like people are like in the streets naked and like in their feral forms because Swamp Thing like basically turns them into animals back to their primordial desires and stuff. And so Batman and Superman are only able to beat him because they give him back his wife. And Superman is just like, oh no, Batman is like, look, if you guys mess with this marriage, you're also messing with Superman, who is also an illegal alien.
Was this a modern?
No,
like
this was Alan Moore. This was Alan Moore.
Okay.
I'll have
I
to
didn't read the Alan Moore Swamp Thing. I didn't read a lot of Swamp Thing. And the stuff I did, it was kind of here and there at the time. I remember the cartoon show as a kid and the toys, because I had the snare arm Swamp Thing action figure. What was that, 90, 91? But yeah, I didn't spend a lot of time with Swamp Thing, but I liked it. I thought he was cool.
I mean, I just thought that that's one of the characters that I'm just like, that one deserves better because he can literally kill you from the inside. Like if you happen to eat a carrot that day, he can kill you with that carrot in your stomach.
That is true.
And that's why Batman was like, when he gives him back his wife, Batman's like, if you ever come back to my city, I promise I will kill you. And then Swamp Thing's like, I believe you will.
He had a lot of press. Deoxy, here's one thing you talked about comic book films and TV shows in the 80s and 90s. Swamp Thing was one of those properties where he had got, the first movie was in 82. Wes Craven did. Wes Craven did the first movie. Let's see, Richard Jordan? Richard Jordan was in the second one. And then they did the Return of Swamp Thing with Heather Locklear in it. And then USA had a live action television series with Dick Durock, who was in the suit. He came back to play Swamp Thing in the TV show on USA and fought Dr. Arcane for a season or two or something like that. So, and then the cartoon show was coming up right next to that with all the action figures. And play sets and vehicles and Dr. Arcane's mutant changing machine and all that. So he had a lot of press, but nobody was really picking up on it. Like, I remember, like, it was not like huge. Like, it was a very niche kind of thing, very small audience. It was not widely received. They pushed it out there to really kick it up with the cartoon show and the movies and all that. But it didn't really go too far. It was a lot of stuff at the time. Deoxy was a lot of hit and miss. Bill Bigsby, Incredible Hulk was a success to a lot of levels. People checked that out. The Spider-Man one, it was a success because it was Spider-Man, but it was it was not the greatest of great because you never saw him really fight any villains that you wanted to see. They were all like made up evil businessmen.
Yeah, I've seen a few clips floating around online.
Oh, you saw that? Okay, so you checked it out. Yeah, it was it was a funny time. Doctor Strange was another one. They gave him a one-off movie, and it was pretty funny. So they had some stuff here and there. Hasselhoff did Nick Fury in the 90s. That one wasn't too great. A lot of potential they could have done with it. Generation X, they did a Generation X TV movie by Fox. Fox was doing a lot of real quick movies. So yeah, that was it. They would promote it and everything, but people, they didn't really come out for it at the time. 89 Batman was kind of the peak of doing a comic book movie, and everybody copied after that. Everybody wanted to do the Shadow. Everybody wanted to get into the Phantom. After that movie, everybody was thinking, oh, we can get into that. The Flash television series that John Wesley Shipp, he did. That was a success. He did a Flash television series. 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 He d who you see in the CW Flash, he was the original Flash in the 1990 series, and it kicked off things like that. So yeah, it was an interesting time, and I was there for all that stuff.
Nice.
There was that live action Tick.
Yes, that was, what was that? 05,
Yeah.
06, around there.
Yeah, around there.
Yeah.
Like early 2000s.
Yeah, that was that, and again, that's another property. Like, I love the cartoon show. I think it's the greatest thing ever. But I'm like, how did they make this and put it on TV? Because nobody knew who the Tick was, and it was this New England comic book character that was fairly new to a lot of people, that and nobody had really heard of. And somehow it ended up on Fox Kids, and all of us kids that saw it loved it. And it's still the greatest mystery on how that worked. But I'm glad it did, because I love
Same
the
as
show.
the Mask. Same as the Mask.
Yes. Yes. The Mask was another character. Dark Horse did that. I did read the comic books before the movie came out, but I was one out of 3 kids that actually knew what it was. And I just happened to stumble across it at a comic book store, and it was crazy. And another friend of mine had started reading it, and one other kid, and we were about it. And then Jim Carrey, they talked about him doing the movie, and we were like, yay, there's going to be a movie. And it kind of, in the movie, took off, and did, if I remember, it did really well. I don't know why at the time, besides maybe Jim Carrey got real busy, but why they didn't get into a sequel.
Because Jim didn't want to do sequels after that.
I hear he's talking about it now.
Now he is, yeah. You got to pay the mortgage, man.
Well, yeah, I feel you on that. I hope it's good if they do it.
It's kind of like Harrison Ford. He comes out every so often to pay the mortgage, and then he's done.
Yeah, like that. He wouldn't do. I think outside of Indiana Jones, he didn't do any. After Star Wars, he didn't do any sequels.
Yeah,
much. Well, no, I take that back. The Tom Clancy movies, he did. He did too.
Yeah, that's right.
So they probably, like you said, they probably paid him. I think they paid him a lot of money to come back and do that.
Yeah, because that's typically how it goes. That he needs to pay the mortgage, pay him really handsomely, disappears for a little while, tells people to get off his porch, and then goes back to making another movie.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he got his things. When you buy expensive airplanes and everything else and sports cars, I guess you got to keep up with it. So it works that way. Deoxy, I got to ask you though, if I remember correctly,
yeah,
Spider-Man is your favorite comic book character of all time, right?
Oh yeah, no, I love Spider-Man.
Okay. So that's that he's your main guy.
I'm slowly collecting the Spider-Man Epic collections.
Okay. Did you get the McFarlane Spider-Man yet?
So I have the Birth of Venom one. Which I believe is some of the McFarlane stuff in it, but I need to get the McFarlane collection that I keep seeing. But money, I need to figure out which ones I want to get when it comes to the Epic collections.
Okay. Because I do have the complete McFarlane Spider-Man run, and it's in Graphic Farm, and it's fantastic.
So which one is your favorite Spider-Man then? Spider-Man like cartoon or like movie or whatever you think
95.
is like the best representation.
Like I'm always going to be a sucker for like Spider-Man 95 and the first Raimi film. Okay. I remember seeing the first Raimi film when it came out as a kid, and it was the coolest thing ever seeing. Like when you follow like the live action, because I mostly followed like Spider-Man and that through live action here and there, not live action, the TV show. There wasn't like a lot. I didn't know of a lot of comic stores when I was a kid here and there, but I mostly followed the TV shows that Fox Kids would put out. But seeing like the live action Raimi film for the first time as a kid, that like blew me away. So it's always going to be like Spider-Man 95 as like my favorite show, and then the first Raimi film.
Okay, so I have a question going off of that. So the collecting market in Australia, you said it's not that big, right?
Yes and no, but I guess price.
Yeah, price dictates it too.
Yeah. I guess there are collectors out there, but I'm not a big collector because of the prices here and there.
So what's the comic book shop like market look like in Australia? Like for instance in LA, now unfortunately there's not a lot of brick and mortar comic book shops, but like I want to say in what the heyday of like the early 2000s, there were quite a bit of mail order comics, right? Comic stores, right, Drew?
Okay. 2000, there were some that were
Yeah.
building up because they were still recovering from that crash was still
Mhm.
kind of a thing. So they did some ordering, they did some things, but it wasn't heavy yet. Because that crash. Now, here's what I'll tell you. In the 80s and in the 90s, like you would go to a yellow page telephone book and you would see thousands of
Yeah.
comic book shops in LA. That was the time. There were so many of them
Yeah.
in the 80s and 90s. That was really the time where they had, you could mail order, you could go to all these brick and mortar shops like all over the place. Like everybody was opening up comic book shops. I would say, as far as 2000 era goes, it was probably, let's see, '07. Things were kind of building up. By the first Iron Man, things were starting to rise more.
Hmm.
And then you had a whole bunch of people. This is when you saw the comic book coffee shop cat hangout kind of place. They did a lot of that, and then just regular comic book shops were opening up a lot. And now, as you said, Angel, a lot of these places have started to close up, unfortunately, which is really sad. I always hope that Golden Apple will always be in business. I hope so, because that was always the premier hangout spot. I haven't been there in many years, but that's where all the famous comic book signings and everything went down at the time. Um, and Frank and Sons, which is
Hmm.
more than comics. I just hope that those guys are always around. And I don't know if brick and mortars, because guys,
I mean, there's gone.
Diamond, yeah, the distributor, they're gone, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they walked out. So that's why I asked you about that, Deoxy, because that's the other thing is Diamond is gone. So like, where does this go from here? Because our big distributor, the most famous distributor, is now out of the game, and now they're talking about the grading game in business is now in question to a lot of points too.
Yeah, I mean, I think the because I've seen it in the trading card community
Mm-hmm.
that um that grading is now the must go to now. Like I remember back in like early 2000s, like late 2000s, um like 2010s, like no one got their stuff graded.
Yes.
Like it was very much like go to a card shop, go to a comic book shop, sell the card there ungraded and you're fine. You'll still get top dollar. But now if you're looking to resell, like you're not gonna get any money having a ungraded card. It's all in the grading.
Yeah, there's a lot of talk about if grading is going to go forward, if they're going to do it anymore, because some people were saying that there was a technology basically where people were able to mimic grading now, and that's why they were talking about it's getting shaky, because it's caused a little bit of an uproar. Um, does this mean they're going to go back and change up how they do grading now? Possibly, I would say yes. Will it change the market? It's kind of something people have been talking about because of that.
Excuse me.
So hopefully, yeah, no problem, buddy. Um, so we'll see what happens with the grading market. and what people choose to do with it. It's a weird time because we've gotten, I want to say we've gotten so advanced and so much stuff has been made and marketing wise for comic book stuff more than ever. You know, we see t-shirts we never thought we would see and hats and clothing and things like that we've never thought we would see, and action figures we never thought we would see. A lot of stuff is kicked up, but at the same time, there's a lot of changes going on. Companies closing, companies opening, people starting their own businesses, making their own action figures. There's now a convention where they make their own action figures. Stuff that properties we already know, new properties that these people make. And there's a whole convention for it. And it's really crazy. If nobody's ever seen it online, there's videos of these conventions. So if I remember correctly, there was a guy selling at a convention the inside of a Megazord. So their seats,
Yeah.
they had the whole Mighty Morphin team like in their independent seats, and he had the LED lights for their colors and everything. And he was selling like the cockpits and everything like that. So you got these people out there actually making crazy stuff like that. And it's customizers on their own, like putting things together. So there's a market for that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, just people are 3D printing.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah. No,
like
absolutely.
I never thought I'd consider buying a 3D printed helmet, you know, but here we are.
Yeah. It's kind of the thing. And does 3D printing beat old school molding? You know, like which one holds up better nowadays? You know, that's kind of the thing about it. You know, like in the case of like Star Wars, especially like the X-Wing pilot helmets, those were Vietnam era helmets that they had gone and done a bunch of crazy work, custom work to. So those helmets are pretty sturdy, you know. So, I mean, that was one good case, but a lot of the time, you know, the stuff was straight out just molded, and, you know, the materials that they use may deteriorate. So if the 3D printing lasts pretty much forever and holds just as well or better, hey, you know, that's a thing that could work out.
Yeah, because I know that the materials that you can use for a 3D printer range from really cheap to really high quality stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I've seen someone print up like a whole wearable Bucky arm.
Oh, I've seen someone print out a whole Raphael statue from Ninja Turtles. Him doing like the little prayer meditation thing.
There's a lot of stuff that people are doing and printing, and a lot of it, guys, they're printing themselves. You know, so it's like there's a whole nother market, you know. So there's a lot that can be done. A lot of stuff people have figured out. I saw a lady at a convention. She printed a whole Princess Leia Bosch Disguise helmet, like for a week. And then she showed up at a convention. Oh, it took me about a week and put it together, and she's wearing it. And I was like, what? And she's, yeah, I did this whole helmet. And then I started making the straps and I printed that. And I was like, wow. So, and people are able to buy 3D printers and buy the material and then just do it. So a lot of things are we're at a weird time where things are changing. Not to mention with advancements in technology, people making their own comic books, you know, people doing things for themselves in so many ways. So it's like you're working for yourself, doing cool things that you like to do that you can also do for other people. So the big giant stores and places, you know, does that change the game for them? You know, that's what we have to look at. Is it going to change the game for them? Or are they going to step up their game and trying to do something that really gives them competition? I don't know. You know, Master Replica was around for many years, and, you know, now you got Theory Saber and other Saber companies that are, you know, pretty much independently ran through smaller market, but their gear is better than what you can get through anything Disney or Lucasfilm.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
Yeah, that's nuts. I mean, Theory Saber, I think, is the best out
Oh,
there on
yes.
the market, and they're the closest thing that you can buy to not getting sued by Disney, which I have no idea how he does it.
You know, he said he's just been working that the best way that he can. You know, I think with him, the keywords are what get him out of trouble. The way he like my Return of the Jedi saber, he calls it the prodigal son.
Yeah.
You know, so he does little things like that to kind of step, so they can't go, well, you can't use that name. It's like, oh, well, I can go in and I could change that.
Well,
and I know
but I'm
Disney
wondering how though, because I mean, it looks just like Luke's lightsaber, you know?
No, absolutely. Should I show off?
You can.
Yeah.
Okay, give me 1 second.
But no, there's like a bunch of 3D printers out there in the community, like Stickosaurus. He has made, I don't know if you follow Stickosaurus on Instagram or Twitter or something like that. But Stickosaurus has made so many helmets when it comes to Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and Ultraman and stuff like that. And then there's people in the community that it will make a helmet for.
Yeah,
like, yeah, it looks really sick.
See, there's no way that you can look at that and not be like, yeah, that's Luke Skywalker's lightsaber.
Yeah, I don't know, whatever deal they said wouldn't do, they made it work. So it's crazy. What if my son charged this?
Yeah. Luke was playing with it.
He plays it all the time. He has his own. He's got his own, but it's a mystery saber, so it's kind of like one of those, you know, imaginary custom builds, you know, so it's you know, one of the things they just put together as an original concept, but he wants this one actually. And I'm like, oh,
I wish it would do blasters again. That's a cool one.
So yeah, my son wants it, but he can't have it. But yeah, I have fun with this, but yeah, guys, I don't know. The game has changed for a lot of this stuff. What do you do when you get stuff like this that is made by a smaller company, and a giant like Disney and Skywalker Ranch can't, not only they can't replicate what he's done because they're still making sabers and all that, and they have not done this. So it's like, see, it's got movie dollar. They're not doing this. And then what? We're going to change the color. So I have all this dialogue and different color switching inside this saber, and it does everything you want it to do.
Wait, it's got quotes in it that plays, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And it also plays music. So it does all the Star Wars music and themes, and it plays it.
I don't know how he gets away with it. That's fascinating.
It's really crazy.
That's interesting.
So this is what we're talking about, boys and girls, is like, this is independently made.
You know, fans are making things for the fans. I mean, there's Stickosaurus in the Power Rangers community, and he makes a lot of helmets when it comes to Power Rangers and Super Sentai and Kamen Rider and stuff like that, because they do a lot of 3D printing, and they look amazing. Like, even when I see stuff online when it comes to cosplay and stuff like that, or Ranger suits, like, a lot of cosplayers look really fantastic.
Oh, 100%.
Like, even outside of Rangers, when it comes to something like Star Wars or Fallout with like the armor and stuff like that, there's like really amazing cosplay that you'll just see, like, because I follow a lot of cosplay stuff here in Bear, where people will make it and they look so good, like so amazing.
Yeah, man. I mean, I've seen Hulkbuster suits. I've seen so many different costumes, and I'm just like, That's amazing what
Mhm.
people are able to do, you know?
Mm.
It is. And the fans are doing a fantastic job and working better with people, and no business politics and very little
Mhm.
business politics, really zero at all. Um, how do we go forward with this? Because we all know Hasbro has downsized how many times in how many years, and I believe they downsize again.
Yeah, they
Like,
did. Mm.
so it's
Mhm.
like, well, man, because I knew a guy that worked for them, and he was one of those guys that got cut out. A couple of them actually, and these guys were not whatever people. They were like
Mhm.
top level people at the company, like as far as making and sculpting, like they're it, and they're removed from the company. So, like, what do they do going forward? Because it's sounding like Hasbro is shrinking and shrinking and shrinking for whatever reason. They're going down, because I didn't hear. Did anybody hear anything about Mattel going down? Like losing?
No.
No, they downsized too. Like every toy company has downsized since last December.
Okay. What about McFarlane Toys?
From my understanding, he acquired some movie licenses. Like I know he's doing the the whole Superman line.
Mhm. Oh
Yeah,
yeah, they're doing the Superman line from what I've seen.
Hmm.
he seems like he's in business
Well, he
better
already
than.
has a small company anyway, so I doubt that he'd be downsizing. If anything, he's just trying to acquire more licenses.
Because
Mm.
he seems to be doing better than everybody else right now. Um,
Well, he
and
doesn't have
he's
as much overhead. That's the thing about it.
That's true. Well, it looks
Because
like he worked it good.
Mattel, Hasbro, everyone, they kind of expanded during the peaks like years, opening up offices, opening up like all these different regions, and now it's come back to bite them in the butt. And while McFarlane is still small and local,
Mhm.
He's worked it really nice, because he started business, what was that, 94?
the first wave, yeah.
So from 94, 2025, he's kept business going so strong and so good. He had a few dead spells, but he was still in the game. He
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
always found a way to because he got sued by the hockey player for the Tony Twist villain, because he named him directly after the hockey player. I guess he didn't talk to him about it or whatever. So and then the Neil Gaiman thing with Angela and all that. So he had quite a few lawsuits and problems, but McFarlane has come up standing pretty good, and his stuff is fantastic. Like, I love McFarlane's stuff, and he's doing vehicles better than anybody else. Hasbro has taken a back seat unless you get the HasLab stuff. Everything else they release on the market, unless it's HasLab quality, is all backseat, and pretty much you got to get it HasLab. McFarlane not only is putting out high level vehicles, but he's cut the cost. The cost that you pay to get like a Batmobile from him is small compared to something you get high level from Hasbro.
Yeah.
Hasbro
Oh
might
yeah, yeah.
$300, $200. He might do it for 80. He might do it for 100. I think that my animated series Batman my wife got me last year, I think she said she paid like 60 something dollars for it.
Yeah, it was. It
Yeah.
was like really inexpensive because I was looking at the Batman Beyond Batmobile,
Yes.
and it's like $100.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's a deal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Compared to what Hasbro, because Hasbro would take that same thing and be like, oh, that's 250 or something like that, or 300. They would charge a lot for it, because I got the Ghostbuster Ecto 1 coming this year. I did the whole setup for that. I think I had to pay like, gosh, was it $600 or 500 something to get it?
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot. So the pricing is kind of Xing people out too, if we think about it. You know, when I was back buying action figures back in the day, you know, X-Men action figures were like $4.99, $3.99. Star Wars was $3.99, $4.99 a figure when they were going. The Power Ranger, the bigger figures were $8-9.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, now what are we looking at?
35 for like a Power Ranger.
Yeah, 35 for a Power Ranger. Super 7 has gone up where they're 50, 60. I saw Wily Kit and Wily Cat for $77 a piece yesterday.
Yeah.
And I'm like, $77 a piece. So if you buy both of them, you know, 140. What? For those two? $77?
I mean, I remember when Bucko came out, they were $10 each.
Yeah, $10, $15 at least.
Yeah, now like you're looking at, if you don't get it on release, like you're looking at like $20 easy.
Well, the $20 Australian, the $25 Australian for a Funko. Depending on how big they are. Well, depending on how big they are. Because I think all my Power Ranger ones I paid for. I'm on Pop Culture where I bought them now.
How much is the Ninja one? Because the
Ninja one that I've got in the back, I think that was $45.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
wow.
So let me see. The movie ones I paid for, let me see. Hopefully they're not sold out so I can still. So the Power Ranger ones I paid for, the movie ones, they were $22 each. And then the Ninja Megazord, that was, let's see, I'm on the website now. That was $45 because that is a bigger Funko, yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot, man. Yeah, because that's usually the 45 I would pay for the really big one, like the Groot life size one.
Oh yeah, I've seen them, like the Vegeta life size one or something like that.
Yeah, the really big one, because that one I know is like a mid-size one. So that's why I was like, oh my God, 45 for that one. It's crazy.
They charge, everything is up, guys. You know, everything is up with pricing, and they're saying that they don't know when the pricing is gonna be better. You know, nobody knows now, but everything is costing a lot extra. Even when you order from like Big Bad Toy Store, their prices have gone up, and they explain now, well, we have to take the prices up. You know, so if you get something, everything is costing more to do all the stuff now. So I don't know when this is going to slow down, but if you're an action figure or comic book collector, especially action figure collector, or collect anything, or you get certain things, it's going to cost you. You know, and I've got that plastic addiction. Not as bad as when I was a million times younger, but there are certain things that catch my eye, and I'm like, oh wow, but that price tag, you know, is getting a little crazy.
No, 100%.
Oh, absolutely. So, that's for sure.
That's the thing, Deoxy. Like, so we can't even hook you up in Australia because we got to pay so much for shipping a lot of the time to get it to you. You know, that's,
I mean, I told my Kyle Higgins story on Henry's stream where he sent me his the limited hardcover version of Radiant Black.
That's
and
cool.
Yeah, he sent it for free, and it was like $99 for shipping. Because like the price of the shipping was on there, I was like, "Jeez."
So you are in close contact with Kyle, then?
Yeah, we've chatted. We chat a fair bit. Like he turned 40 a couple of days ago, so I wished him happy birthday. And he's been telling me, like, talking about like his adventures at bars and arcades and stuff like that. But yeah, me and Kyle, we talk on and off again. Because he sends me early copies of he sends me early copies of Rogue Sun and Radiant Black and stuff like that for reviews.
Yeah, I talked to Kyle one year. I remember WonderCon in Anaheim, and like nobody came up to see him, and we were just chatting about Nightwing because he was doing his New 52 Nightwing run at the time.
Oh, okay.
So he was about to go and start Power Rangers, I believe.
Yeah, that sounds about right around that time.
So we were talking Power Rangers for a little bit. He had just started it, and I was just like, "Oh man, I really loved your Nightwing run." You know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So it sounds like ever since the whole Aaron situation, you've been on the up and up, right?
I think Kyle started talking to me in November when I wanted to get the Radiant Black thing, and then we've been talking on and off again since then. But Kyle's great.
Okay. So I've never read Radiant Black. So
Mhm.
from the pages I've seen from Henry's channel, so is the character supposed to be Aaron or?
I don't think so. I think that's just a weird coincidence with how that dialogue turned out.
Okay.
So, yeah, which I didn't catch my first reading as well. But the thing with Radiant Black, it's like a guy who's like $38,000 in debt or 30K in debt, becomes a superhero. Failing writer, struggling writer becomes a superhero. And then when you get 5 issues into the series, like the script flips really in an interesting way without spoiling anything, and it takes a very interesting turn. But yeah, Radiant Black is definitely something worth checking out, in my opinion.
Okay, because I was trying to figure that one out. So, like, because I know Kyle puts in little Easter eggs of his life into his
Oh
comic.
yeah. There's like one in Radiant Black with Power Rangers, where when he's trying to discover his superhero name, and it says Power Rangers, crosses it out, maybe not, might get sued.
Wow.
Okay, that's funny. I'm gonna have to pick up a trade for that one.
Oh, just get the year 1 hardcover. That's what I recommend, getting the year 1 hardcover, because they've got the hardcover that's out, like, which is the first 12 issues, I believe.
Okay.
That's definitely worth checking out.
Yeah, because I know they do a lot of different. Don't they? Wasn't like a free comic book day like you didn't know which cover you were gonna get like around there.
I think so. They might have done that for Radiant Black or Massiverse, but
Yeah.
yeah, they've done that, which I did buy I bought I don't collect a lot of blind bags, but I did get the Battle Beast one from Invincible, because the rare one in that one was you can get like issue 2 a month early. So
Oh wow.
yeah.
That's is Radiant. Okay, so where would you put that series on your list of favorite comic book series?
Definitely top 5. It's something that I recommend people check out, because it's very niche and underground in a way, even though a lot of people check it out, but like not a lot of people are talking about it. If you know what I mean, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I think it's kind of like a Walking Dead.
Is Walking Dead niche-ish?
It was niche, like as a comic. It was niche.
Oh yeah, as a comic, it was very niche, and then the show blew up, and that's when I would say it's like Walking Dead is kind of underground with not a lot of people checking it out.
Okay.
I think a better comparison might be something like
maybe Spawn.
No. Too popular, because I was working at a comic book shop before the Walking Dead TV show came out. And it was heavily popular. We keep it in the stores. People will be waiting for it to show up.
Well, that was when the TV show hit. Like before the TV show, you could find it. Yeah.
Oh, had not hit yet. This was at least 5 years before. Gosh, what was it? It was several years before the show had come out.
And
it was that popular. It was like our number one seller was Walking Dead way before the TV show was even being looked at. Because the TV show, when did it come out? 2011?
2000. Yeah, 2011, 2010.
Let's see what you got.
2010, yeah.
Okay, so my dad was still alive at the time. So this was in 2004 or 5. around there. And it was like, it was flying off the shelves. And all they had was the comic book. There was no other promotion. And people love this thing. It was weird, but I would say this. I think it was something to do with zombie movies had come back.
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
That's
if
what,
that was
looking
2004,
back,
that would have been Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead around that
Yes.
time.
Yeah.
yes, that had come back. George Romero had come out of, I don't want to say retirement, but as far as a massive studio, like a theater big release, that's when Land of the Dead had come out. And Romero had come back to do it. You know, who did the original Night of the Living Dead
Yeah.
and Dawn of the Dead, Day of the Dead. You know, he had come back and he did Land of the Dead and put the a comic book series called Toe Tags that he had put his name on. I don't think he was writing it all the time. That series and then Walking Dead were our two top sellers, and they were flying off the shelves like crazy. And people were coming in talking about zombies and zombie movies and zombie this and zombie milkshakes and zombie boba teas and everything else, and everything was zombie at the time. I was like, what the? Okay.
Zombie craze was insane back then.
It was a big thing. So I'm trying to think about a comic book series that was really quiet. That a lot of people did not, you know, it was a very select audience.
Yeah, Marvel Zombies was like around December 2005. Like it headed it. Yeah.
And then that came. And then they had Ash. Eventually they had an Ash that showed up in Marvel to fight the zombie apocalypse thing that was coming. And so that was crazy. And it also brought in the return of Evil Dead. So they had Evil Dead comics, you know, Army of Darkness comics, using Bruce Campbell's likeness and all that. And, you know, then they did the Marvel Zombie thing and had Bruce Campbell show up, you know, doing that, which was crazy.
Yeah, they even had Ash versus Freddy versus Jason too, around that time.
I vaguely remember that.
The comic book?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were supposed to do a movie.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah.
If we can't do the movie, we're gonna do the comic book.
Bruce Campbell was down to do the movie. You know, he was down. So, but I think what happened was, I think he was saying something like, well, you know, Freddy and Jason can't exactly die and all that stuff like that. He's like, well, shoot. He's all, if I show up, I'm the hero. I'm gonna do my thing, you know. And I think there's a little bit of dispute with that, trying to get everybody to play in the same arena, and it just never happened. But you know, it would have been cool to see Bruce Campbell do that, but he better win. That's all I gotta say. He's got to be the winner.
Well, they want to do Chucky versus Michael Myers.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah, he was really pushing for it. There was when Halloween first came out, the new trilogy. One of the TV spots, because the Chucky series was going on, where they had Chucky carving a pumpkin with Michael Myers. And then Michael Myers just looks at him like, what is this? And Chucky's just like, what, you don't like it?
Well, I guess Chucky has had quite a resurgence of popularity for X amount of years, which is really interesting. But I get the appeal. He's funny, you know. He's got his.
I think the TV show saved it, because those movies where he was just funny, just weren't hacking it. So he was just like, okay, I'm going to make a TV show. I'm going to have more time for exposition. And it worked. It really worked.
Yeah, I love that Chucky TV show. Shame it was cancelled.
It's canceled? Okay.
Yeah, it was canceled, but he said that he's gonna because it got too expensive. Sci-Fi didn't want to pay for it anymore because the budget had just gotten too big, and so he was just like, "That's fine. I'll just make it a movie."
And that makes sense with the third season, because the third season took entirely in like one location.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, COVID hit it. You know,
and then the strike hit it as well.
the strike. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Ash versus Evil Dead. They didn't do the next season for either when they did the television series for that, which was a downer. But they're talking about animation.
Okay.
Something with the Evil Dead and animation to continue on with the Ash character, because I don't think that Bruce wants to do those stunts and stuff anymore. I think he.
I don't know. I think he wants to. I mean, he was great in Doctor Strange.
Yeah, but I think his back. I think he's got enough injuries, because when you talk to these guys, when they get around his age, that's the conversation that I get is like, yeah, I'm at the age where like I just don't want to get hurt anymore.
I mean, Mel Brooks is 98 and he's doing Spaceballs too now. So.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That's
cool. Will he be 100 when it comes out, or is he doing it when he's like going to be 98?
I don't know. It depends when production starts, but he
true.
might be 100 by the time it comes out.
Yeah, because they already said he's going to play Yogurt again.
Oh my goodness! Wow, that's a long ways awaited sequel.
Have you not seen the trailer for it?
No, I did not see the trailer.
Oh, you need to watch it, Drew. Yeah. You really need to watch it. It's really good.
It's that good, huh?
So it's just the opening crawl, but just the opening crawl is like enough to get you hyped.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then the new helmet looks kind of like Kylo Ren, so I'm kind of interested in seeing where it goes.
Is Bill Pullman coming back?
I don't know, but I know that what's his name? Rick Moranis is coming back.
Yeah.
Okay. Because John Candy passed away, so can't. Joan Rivers has passed away. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what they do.
Yeah, I want to see what they do too, because there's a lot of jokes that they can make.
Especially with that opening crawl of how it sets everything up.
Yeah.
You know what, Deoxy? I think I got it. What about like Madman or Mage or comic books like that? I don't know. I don't even know if you're familiar with those.
No, I'm not familiar with those ones. No.
Okay. Madman was kind of like a comic book or Grendel. Those are like comic books that like comic book people knew about. If you read comic books, it was like, oh, if you like Marvel and DC, you'll like this company. And they had action figures, but they were only really put out at comic book and collector shops.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's like only people that read the comic books knew who they really, really were. And they never went much higher than that. So that the comic book series you're talking about, it could kind of be something like that. Because people don't know it at a massive level, and there's no TV show or anything.
Okay, I see what you're talking about.
Yeah, because they're the titles. I had to think for a while, but those are the titles that come to mind that they had talked about making into TV shows, but they never did. But they were strictly funded and supported by like people that came to comic book shops. So I could see your series being something very closely like that.
So I know you already made a video on it on Deoxy, but we haven't heard Drew's take on the Emerald Dragon.
Oh yeah.
What do you think about it, Drew?
The comic book?
The leak for JDF's series.
Oh,
Aaron series, we could say.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. There's so many things with dragon in it nowadays.
Right.
I lost track. You know, it's interesting. I think that because that was the first idea, right?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That was so that was the first one. I thought it was I thought it was interesting.
Mhm.
And that's the one that Johnny was involved in, right?
No.
No. This
No.
is the Emerald Dragon
This is
that he claims
this is
that
what
Soul of the
JDF
Dragon sold.
and Aaron were working on before it became Legend of the White Dragon.
Mhm.
Okay.
Well, this is before. So this is my idea, and correct me if I'm wrong, Deoxy, but it
Yeah.
sounds like this thing was made even before the Master Morpher.
Yes, because there's proof of concept art that's in the pitch deck. I don't know if it was sent to you,
Yeah,
where it said this artwork was conceived in 2013.
there
And
we
if you
go.
look at some of the artwork, it looks like a lot like with what became of Legend of the White Dragon.
Yeah,
And this is before
Prime.
the Master Morpher. Okay.
Yes.
yeah. So I'm guessing. So it sounds very. I will give Aaron the credit that it sounds like. Remember that Tommy robot that was in Shattered Dimensions?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It sounds kind of like that, where he was trying to absorb all the powers and take over everybody's, like, and Tommy hadn't been seen in a little while. So I think
Okay.
that's where maybe Aaron is talking about, oh, they stole my idea for this. It kind of did show up in Shattered Dimensions.
Okay. Does he
Wait,
also talk about because let me see. Power Rangers was doing the Nickelodeon thing when they did that episode, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Does he ever talk about like his talks with did he ever talk with Nickelodeon, because they ended up doing that?
No, not that I know of.
Okay.
So from my understanding, they were talking to Hasbro about it.
Okay.
Oh no.
Bless
Excuse
you.
me, sorry. He was talking to Saban about it, but Saban was already in talks to selling to Hasbro. So, from my understanding, he was kind of leading JDF on, not telling him that it was already going to be sold to Hasbro.
And a lot of deals fell through when Saban sold to Hasbro. Like there was going to be like a Shadow Grid like a TV series. I don't know.
Yeah.
Him and Kyle were pitching like a Shadow Grid series that would be like World of the Coinless. But that fell through when Hasbro took over because like a lot of those deals fell through.
So this is interesting because you've got Saban and you've got Hasbro. So Saban, did they steal ideas?
I mean, if they were licensing through Saban, then technically it's not stealing because you're selling the story to Saban.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing that we were telling our old co-host, that you need to copyright what you write so that at least you get the credit for it.
And there's one thing that like people who worked on the Power Ranger comics or TV show, because people would tweet ideas at them or ideas for a TV show or a name for a season, and they would be like, cool idea, but we can't use it. We don't accept fan submissions because if it did get used, then we'd be stealing your idea and we'd be up for a lawsuit and stuff like that. But thanks for the idea. We probably can't use it now because you told me your entire pitch deck or your entire concept. Like I think even Richard Ross, whoever owns Boom, he even came out with a statement by saying like, please stop emailing our writers about your ideas. We've got talented people working on them. We don't want to hear them, or respectively, kindly.
They kind of had to, Deoxy, because there was like a lot of lawsuits for like stuff that had come out. Like when the Ninja Turtles came out, there were people that tried to sue Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, saying somewhere in 1962 the grandfather created mutant turtles, and people were showing up in droves trying to sue and get money from that. So I understand it from that point because, you know, there's so many people and if you work a deal, it doesn't work, you know, people are upset. So they would have to work directly with you, drop a contract where everything is fair and makes sense and everything's drawn out correctly to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the best way to do it, you know. So I mean, yeah, if you share these ideas, somebody could come up with the same idea and maybe not heard your idea, and then that's another thing that could happen too.
Or it's a super popular idea, like Jason David Frank and Kimberly have a daughter.
Yeah, people have talked about that for a long time, or them coming back together, even though the show did their weird thing with the Dear John letter, but then coming back together, and people have speculated and told stories. I remember seeing a lot of fan fiction stories about that. So
yeah,
there's
wait. So so Hasbro bought Power Rangers in, it was 2017, 2018. Hasbro bought Power Rangers in May of 2018.
Okay. Which makes sense because like you said, the drawings had the date of 2017 on them, right?
No, 2013.
2013. So 2013 and onwards, JDF is probably pitching it to Heim. And Heim was just like, yeah, be my good boy and go on Megaforce and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
He sells it to Hasbro, so then JDF and Aaron have to now pitch it to Hasbro. But Hasbro already has their idea for the Master Morpher and everything. So I'm guessing they used some of those concepts, like that villain absorbing all the powers, to that Tommy robot.
Like, I'm trying to think because so Megaforce, there was no robot that came through. It was just them teaming up and fighting. Oh yeah, the ninja thing. Yeah, that was like 2018, around that time. Possibly, maybe, I don't know. It's hard to say.
Yeah, because at that point he had already gotten rejected for Shattered Grid.
Yeah.
So that's when they get really pissed off and they're just like, all right, fine, we're going to make our own IP. And that's when Legend of the White Dragon started. Yeah, it's just crazy because you do see the concept hops from there to seeing, like you said, like the suit design for that one Ranger looks just like Dragon Prime.
Oh yeah. That one suit. Yeah, the Red Ranger, that cover. Come out. Yeah.
I don't know if you got the pitch deck or Angel sent you the pitch deck, but yeah, there's like, if you,
as you can see with the synopsis, an unknown evil from the past has returned and stolen all the Rangers' powers. It is now up to Tommy Oliver to reawaken the Green Ranger power to stop the evil and return to Rangers' powers before it's too late. Yeah, that sounds just like Shattered Dimensions.
Do you mean the Spider-Man game when you say Shattered Dimensions?
Oh, you think of the Spider-Man game, you said?
Yeah, you said Shattered Dimensions. That's the Spider-Man game.
Oh, then what is it called? Dimensions in
Shattered Grid. There's Dimensions in Danger, which was the Ninja Steel episode, but then there's Shattered Grid.
No, that's the one I'm actually talking about. Is the Ninja episode? Because,
the Ninja Steel, yeah.
Yeah,
this
remember
sound anything
that
like Shattered Grid.
There sounds just like it. Yeah, the Green Ranger, the most powerful Ranger of all time, a legend among the ranks, and then since the disappearance of the Power Rangers, he has been secretly training. Yeah, it's just, I don't know about that, you know? Like, what happened to those Rangers? Why are they missing? Why is Tommy
the only one?
Yeah. Dark Ranger, revealed to be the long-forgotten offspring of intergalactic sorceress Rita Repulsa. See, isn't there already Thrax, like you said?
Yeah, there was like Frax.
Yeah.
And that came out in like 2008, 2009-ish.
Yeah. Takara Ashlyn. She is the leader of the Emerald Ninjas, a group of warriors dedicated to preserving peace and justice in the wake of the Rangers' disappearance. See, that already makes me think of Phados.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, so are they trying to like bring, because I know they're talking about temples and different things like that. It almost like they wanted to bring Phados from the movie into the regular universe.
Yeah.
Let's go down, Drew.
You got it.
The future. It has been 12 years since the last reported sighting of the legendary Power Rangers. We find a sprawling urban landscape as far as the eye can see, expanding in all directions, made of glass and steel. Following a chance encounter with would-be muggers, Tommy Oliver, the former leader of the Power Rangers, is discovered by a band of warriors known as the Emerald Ninjas. See, I'm just like, how would Tommy get discovered? Does he morph to take down these muggers? Like, imagine that, like just some muggers, like take my wallet, and he's like, it's morphin' time. They're like, what the hell's going on? Yeah, here it is. Takara Ashlyn reveals her intent to lead Tommy on a journey to a hidden temple where there is preserved remnants of the green candle.
Which the green candle, I think, was like not destroyed, but it melted. I think that was the whole idea of that.
Yeah, I want to say, yeah. I mean, so it's like, what's left? Is it the wax or what's left?
Yeah. And I don't know how long wax would last if it's been.
So apparently, wax can live forever. I know there are Japanese wax that is still looking beautiful to this day. So that is something that could technically happen.
That's true.
And then all of a sudden, have you guys seen the movie Mummy Returns?
Yes.
Long time
all of a sudden, this part sounds like Mummy Returns, where he just gets on a plane and goes to the hidden temple. Yeah. So the next morning, the plane lands in a clearing near the hidden temple. Yeah, it sounds like Mummy Returns when they get to the hidden pyramid of Imhotep or the Scorpion King. The Scorpion King. Yeah. They trek up the mountainside towards the temple. Takara reveals to Tommy that Kenji's last name is Kenji Ashlyn. See, that's like a cop out. It's kind of like, okay, who's Ashlyn? You know, to my knowledge, there's no Power Ranger villain or anybody known as Ashlyn.
I think these characters are like original OCs.
Okay. Because that would be a cool way to, like, if they really wanted to, like, you know, blow me away, they would just be like, what was the name of Tommy's friend who was the dinosaur that was Mesogog?
Yeah, Mesogog. Anton
Mercer.
Yeah, Anton.
Like, if they were just like, oh, his last name is Mercer, then it would have been like, okay, like, now we're getting somewhere. Okay, let's see. So, eventually overpowering the putties during a frantic race for the temple, they're met with Kenji's forces. And at this point, I'm like losing people. I'm just like, who is Kenji again? Who is this? Who is that? You know? And Takara sacrifices herself and surrenders to Kenji in order to buy Tommy the time he needs to enter the temple. He discovers the green candle waiting for him. Tommy harnesses the candle's powers and bonds with it, which reveals the secret of the Power Rangers. It's like, okay, but the other Rangers didn't have candles.
Well, what about those candles that Rita made of them to steal their powers? That one episode.
Huh.
Remember that one?
Yeah,
No, I
yeah,
don't
yeah.
remember that one.
Yeah.
I remember that
Maybe
one.
that's the best I got for it. I don't know if it
That's
makes
the
sense.
best I
But
got too. I mean, yeah, it could be something with candles. I mean, the only way I can see it, because I've seen a lot of Sentai where they try to say that the reason for the Sentai powers is like colors working together in harmony. But
Mhm.
even that's like a stretch. Even
Yeah.
that's a stretch. Because like they'll be like, "Oh, I have you ever seen the Wild Force anniversary episode in Japan, Deoxy?
Yes, yeah.
They
Everyone versus Sentai, whatever it's called.
yeah. So Drew, in that movie, they they explain the Ranger colors as a rose,
Mhm.
because Big One is like the, I would say is kind of like a Tommy character in Super Sentai, and he's
Mhm.
always carrying a red rose. So
Mhm.
he says the Ranger colors um are like nature in balance. That the red Ranger is supposed to be the red rose, like the
Mhm.
vibrant red of the rose. The Green Ranger or the Black Ranger is supposed to be the stem, which holds together the team. Blue is the water that gives the rose life. Yellow is supposed to be the sun. Blah blah blah. All working together to give you a rose.
Mhm.
Mel, thanks for breaking that down for me because I have not seen a lot of Sentai. Like I've seen little bits and pieces.
Yeah.
So I am not the Sentai expert, everybody.
So that's the only thing I can think of, is that like this candle is like maybe like a radiant color, and then as it does, like the colors mix or something. So I don't know.
Maybe.
Yeah, but even that's stretching it. Okay, fighting as power coins, but in their unity as a force for good, as a family, Tommy reclaims the powers of the Green Ranger, but they're limited until he reassembles a new team. Emerging from the temple with newfound purpose, Tommy feels the weight of sacrifice with the fallen ninjas, while Kenji and his men are gone along with Takara. See, and then I'm thinking maybe this is where Jenna comes in.
Yeah.
Because remember, Jenna was always supposed to be in Power Rangers. That was the end game
Mhm.
for Tommy. So maybe that's where he brings in Jenna as part of the new team. I'm speculating.
Right.
All right, so Tommy races back to Sunny, and the two fly back to the fallen city. Without warning, a pair of Lockheed F-104 Starfighter. What the heck is that? I kind of want to look
Um,
it up just to see what the heck a
That's
Lockheed.
a fighter by Lockheed and Martin. So their engineer company, one of the biggest ones. It looks like they made a jet that can
Yeah, Jet.
fly in space.
Starfighter. Okay. It's that. So just so the audience knows, it's those jet-looking like fighter pilots, like
Mhm.
that you see in the movies, like Top Gun, like
Mhm.
Top Gun. Okay. Well, apparently, Tommy is now in Top Gun. Uh, this would be a really cool scene. Is that I know there's a part here where they're like fighting in the air, and Tommy supposedly
Morphs,
morphs
yeah.
in the air.
Midair.
That kind of like reminds me of the Turbo movie where he morphs, where Cat morphs like right in the middle of the air.
Yeah, when she's morphing when falling.
Yeah. All right, let's see.
Is that the part where she hits the water and then the water stops her
Yeah.
powers?
Yeah.
I was like, wait a minute. So this whole time, all you got to do is just trick them to jump in the lake and then they lose their powers. That's what's happening? I guess.
I mean, from my understanding, they were supposed to be losing the powers, like they were supposed to be unstable. So, but they cut that whole part out.
Release the turbo cut.
Yeah. So
Isn't that the one where Adam and Tanya had a problem like that, and they had to be put in some sort of chamber and whole 9 yards because they were losing their power? Something happened with their powers, or they got messed
something
up.
like that. There was always
Yeah.
something going on with powers.
Yeah. That's like meant to be a scene where like the Zeozords get destroyed by Divatox or something like that.
Okay. Well, looks
And
like
Adam falls in love with a mermaid.
Cutting off the link to the other dimension and preventing Lord Zed's resurrection. See, and then Lord Zed's not dead.
Yeah, he got purified at the end of Power Rangers in Space, or
he got purified, and then they were just dancing on the moon.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go down, Drew.
Yeah.
Tommy defeats the Dark Ranger with the help of Takara and Sunny. Our heroes evacuate the base as the damage to the teleporter causes the facility to implode and be laid to waste. Now, after defeating Kenji, the Dark Ranger, Tommy's Green Ranger powers are fully restored, and the original 5 power coins are in his control. It sounds like a beatdown.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people have been saying. It sounds like a beatdown.
Like, there's such little expose that it just does sound like a beatdown.
And they move from one place to another. Like, I get it if this was like a mini series or something, like a web series, and maybe like the jumping the place would make sense. But it just sounds like one big fight scene. Like, it doesn't sound like a lot of. And I get this is a pitch deck.
It does remind me of, again, it reminds me of that episode, the ninja episode, Dimensions in Crisis, or whatever it's called. Because even that, it's making me think that even that episode is a beatdown.
Right.
Because there's only like one scene where they explain everything in that episode. Where all of a sudden Wes comes out of nowhere with all the other Rangers from the past, explains that, there's some sort of evil. But even then, like, you get cuts from like 1 second where with the Ninja Rangers, another cut you're in their base, and then the next cut you're on that bridge, and then Tommy comes out of nowhere. Yeah, this sounds just like it. Like it okay, now I can see maybe where Aaron is coming up with, okay, they stole my idea. Okay. Go down, Drew?
You got it.
I think this is the part now where we're going to get the concept art. Yeah, go down.
More?
Yeah. To the next one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. See, that looks like Dragon Prime now. Oh, no, not Dragon Prime.
No.
White Dragon.
Well, yeah, White Dragon mixed with it looks like their Green Ranger suit that they designed just with different armor.
Yeah.
But the armor does look very much like White Dragon. Now that looks like Dragon Prime.
Exactly. That one 100% is Dragon Prime, but obviously, okay, so this is probably where they got that idea that what's his name hates so much of the full visor.
Yeah.
Because as you can see, they probably, I can see Aaron and JDF really like the glowing eyes of the helmet, and then just decided, let's get rid of the mouthpiece and let's just make it a giant visor.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, and then right here you can easily see White Dragon, and instead of green energy, it would be his blue energy, and obviously that's Dragon Prime. Let's go down, Drew. Are those Zords?
Yeah, it looks like Dragon Sword right there. Yeah, it's Dragon Sword.
So I'm guessing the Zords get destroyed at some point. Let's go down.
Got it.
Yeah, that's the last slide. And then that's looking very Shattered Grid. Yeah, man. I mean, that's rough. that's rough, but I can see the concepts of the idea.
Yeah.
All of that.
Yeah, I think I understand the picture of this a little bit more now.
Mhm.
Because that Dragon Prime was pretty close there.
Yeah.
That's almost 100. It could be almost 100% matchup right there.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back up to the Dragon Prime, I think it's like 2 slides up.
Mhm.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I can tell. I can tell when they went to go rewrite the IP to their own, they 100% like the glowing mouth and the fire.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So they just
Yeah.
decided to get rid of the mouthpiece and just be like, okay, let's just make it a giant visor, so it
Yeah.
looks like it's a fire in the mouth.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see the beginnings of something there, and
Yeah.
like just the powers absorbing is probably what gave Hasbro the idea for the Master Morpher. Yeah, that's crazy.
Well, things are definitely in question for sure, and I understand why.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
And I can also tell that with this pitch deck, they probably, if that email is to be believed,
Mhm.
then yeah, Hasbro probably told JDF like we like the idea, we just
Uh-huh.
want Kyle to flesh it out.
Yeah. Well, so
But again, that's speculation.
yeah.
All right, man, you can close it out.
All right.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was a trip, and we loved having Deoxy here. We'll definitely have
Thank
him
you.
again. Check out Deoxy's work. It's under
Mhm.
his name right there. Deoxy360 does a ton of comic reviews. He's the number one guy to follow
Thank you.
for Ranger Prime.
Mhm.
He's got all the inside scoops with Kyle Higgins, and you know,
Mhm.
really great person to listen to.
Thank you. Thank you. Much appreciated.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming on, Deoxy. Everybody
Anytime.
check out Deoxy's channel. No, thank
Mhm.
you, man. We want to make sure people check out your channel and
Mhm.
check out the stuff that you have going on.
Mm.
He's the guy on the modern comic book world as well, and we want to make
Mhm.
sure that he gets you guys checking out all his awesome takes and materials. He also reviews. Well, no, he gives news about up and coming toys and action figures. Let me get that.
Yeah.
I want to get that one right. So he does that. So, you guys want that news. You guys want to know what's going on in the comic book scene. You guys want to know what's going on with Power Rangers and Kyle Higgins. Deoxy is your guy.
Thank you.
You're
For
very
everything
welcome,
else,
sir.
Code of Danger, signing out.
Thanks, guys.
Okay.